He stood on the award stage and said with a gentle smile that his wife had already passed away and that she was the one who made him who he is today. The entire audience rose to their feet and applauded. They were moved to tears by his devotion, praising his loyalty. And I stood in the kitchen, my hands covered in blood and grease, like someone who had never existed. My name is Emily Carter. I live in a decent house in the suburbs of Chicago. I am still his legal wife, and also the live-in caregiver of this household. But in his world, I am nothing more than a shadow that can be erased. That day, he brought his students home to celebrate. The living room was bright, filled with laughter. They gathered around his mother, praising him as a devoted son. They said he had remained loyal to his late wife, a rare man of true love. I stood at the doorway holding a soup I had spent 3 hours cooking. No one looked at me. A young woman smiled at me and said, "Can you grab some plates?" Her tone was as natural as if she were speaking to an actual maid. The room fell silent for a second, but no one corrected her. He stood nearby pouring tea, not even glancing up. He simply said, "Hurry up." In that moment, my identity of 8 years in this house was completely erased. I looked down at my old stained clothes and worn slippers. In their eyes, I wasn't even worth as much as a paid cleaning lady. When some soup accidentally spilled onto the edge of the altar, he suddenly shoved me in anger. The boiling liquid burned the back of my hand, but all he cared about was the photograph. He carefully wiped the frame with a handkerchief, as if touching a lover. People around him immediately praised his love. No one saw my burn. No one asked if I was okay. At that moment, it felt like I had been publicly erased. That night, he threw me a pair of knee pads. I thought, for a second, that he finally cared. But he said they were for his mother and that I should remember to take care of her at night. In that instant, my last illusion shattered. I told him I wanted a divorce. He pulled out cash from his wallet and tossed it on the table. He told me to stop making a scene, that everything could be solved with money. In his eyes, all my emotions had a price. I pushed open the door to his study and saw him sitting at the piano. He was speaking softly into the air, as if talking to his late wife. That kind of tenderness I had never received even for a second. I said again, "I want a divorce." He replied, "Don't play games." I'm not affected by this. That was the moment I truly felt disgust toward him. In the middle of the night, his mother had a seizure. I carried her downstairs by myself. I weighed 90 pounds, carrying someone over 130. My legs trembled, but I didn't stop. There was no one else. At the hospital, the doctor asked if I was the caregiver. I was about to answer when he walked in and said, "Yes, she's very professional." Those 3 seconds of silence hurt more than anything else. I threw the towel at him and said I quit. He shouted that I was being unreasonable. But I no longer needed to explain anything. Back home, I found the so-called marriage agreement. It wasn't a marriage, it was an employment contract disguised as one. I was responsible for everything, and he paid me monthly. I opened his account book. Every expense was clearly recorded. Money spent on his late wife was labeled love. Money spent on me was labeled maintenance cost. At that moment, I didn't even feel angry anymore. It was just absurd. I tore up the agreement, packed my things, and left with a single worn bag. In 8 years, I had nothing that truly belonged to me. When I left, the only thing he cared about was whether the floor was clean. The next day, he called me asking how to use the washing machine. He asked what to do about his mother, where his clothes were. That was when I finally understood he didn't need a person. He needed a function. I hung up, smiling for the first time. Leaving him, I realized how clean life could feel. 3 months later, he came to find me. By then, I had become a senior caregiver trainer. He stood at the door, disheveled, asking me to come back. He said his mother couldn't live without me. He said he was used to me. In front of everyone. I asked him, what kind of wife needs a contract to exist? What kind of marriage is calculated monthly? His face turned pale. He had nothing to say. I told him I filed for divorce. That was when he finally realized I was truly gone. Later, he got into a car accident and tried to use it to bring me back. But when I saw the medical report, the act fell apart instantly. I showed up with my lawyer and made him sign a compensation agreement. $860,000. Not a cent less. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. He finally understood I was never someone he could control. When his mother was dying, she begged me to return. He said he would give me anything. I asked him one question: do you want a wife or an unpaid caregiver? He fell silent. I already knew the answer. A year later, I stood on a stage in a 5-star hotel, wearing a red dress, standing under the lights. I thanked my ex-husband for teaching me how to earn and how to wake up. The audience applauded as I became a partner in the company. He stood at the door, staring at me like I was someone he had never known. Only then did he understand the person he had stepped on was the one he had truly lost. I didn't look back. I raised my glass and walked into my new life. Later, I heard he had lost his mind. He talked to his late wife's photo every day, and I lived under the sun until one day I realized something. He had never truly loved anyone. He only needed someone to replace everything, and the moment I stopped replacing, his world collapsed.